everybody, we are live.
Okay, thanks, Mary Jo. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes, here.
All right, the first item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting dated January 11th, 2021. Are there any comments or questions on those?
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, just two items actually for finance, and we'll move on. We'll cover everything else in committee of the whole. The first of which is Ordinance 2021-5, and this is establishing the Civic Center Capital Improvement Fund. And Mr. Ragu sent out an email earlier this week regarding this, and of course, this is establishing this fund for the construction of the new City Hall and police station. As he mentioned this before, the city did the same thing when they constructed the fire station, just provides for better accountability of the funds. Right, Mr. Ragu, anything you want to add to that?
No, there's nothing else I need to add to it.
Thank you, sir. All right, and we do need to pass this by suspension of the rules this evening, if possible. Does anyone else in the committee have any comments or questions on this?
Move to recommend approval with suspension, under suspension of the rules.
Second.
To recommend council adopt under suspension, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Okay, and the second item is Ordinance 2021-6, and this is a continuation ordinance that needs to be readopted to give the mayor more flexibility when it comes to the COVID-19 employee pay and fringe benefits. And this will extend, this ordinance will extend that flexibility through July 31st of this year, or until 14 days after the governor no longer declares a state of emergency. All right, are there any additional comments or questions on this?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Hopefully by either July 31st or 14 days after the state of emergency is lifted. We hope that that's coming soon, but I would just state for the record that, if we need to extend this, that we all have open minds when it comes to this. A lot of times our employees needing time off is really beyond anything they've done or beyond their control. And I just want to make sure that we're providing them with the mayor with the necessary tools to deal with this particular issue.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I agree as well. All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll make a recommendation that council adopt this evening by suspension of the rules.
Second.
To recommend council adopt by suspension, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
All right, the only other thing on our agenda that has to do with finance is Ordinance 2020-58, and that was the food trucks ordinance. There has been some discussion at the previous two meetings about the fee itself, which in the ordinance now states is $50. Mr. Butler did send us some information after our last meeting, giving some what different cities do as far as that goes. Is there any other further discussion on this before we make a recommendation to council?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt any council members who may also have additional comment. In the meantime, since our last meeting, Andy Udris, who has experience in the food truck industry, suggested a couple of additional changes. They are not finance related, and so I'm not sure if you want to take up the discussion in committee of the whole, or if you want to do that now. I'd be happy to offer those suggestions now. But those would be by way of amendment on the floor, particularly if council is going to amend anyway that dollar figure. And so it's really up to this committee as to whether it wants to entertain that discussion or whether you want to push that to committee of the whole, Mr. Chair.
We'll just wait for that part of the discussion for committee of the whole. Is there any other comments? I know we went back and forth a little bit on a dollar amount. Are there any additional comments that anyone wants to make in regards to that, the financial side?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I guess I'm fine with the $50, but I think if we get into a situation where that does seem prohibitive for food trucks that were trying to attract to any events in the city, that we're open to possibly amending it. Or the other thing I thought of too was, does it help if we, I know we talked a little bit about waiving it if it was like one of the city events. I don't know if that's such a good idea or if there's a range. I think certainly, our fire department, it probably is costing $50 to have a firefighter go there and do the safety inspection for their propane and everything. I guess we could see how it goes this year, and, if we have an issue, then change it.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll hold off making a recommendation then until we have the other information at committee of the whole. Mr. Raguse or Mayor, is there anything additional you need to add for finance?
I do. I have 3 brief items here. The first 2 was part of my email on Thursday to City Council, and last one was not. So briefly, our credit card rebate, we will be receiving a rebate for a credit card through Key Bank in the amount of $2,634.41. As part of our credit card policy, I'm to report that out to City Council. Just advance notice, our financial audit, 2020 financial audit will start Monday, and I will report back to the council as we learn more. And lastly, there was an article on cleveland.com regarding the 2020 municipal income tax returns. A part of the returns this year will include a box for the taxpayer to be able to claim a refund for working from home. At this point in my conversation from Rita, this is informational purposes only. They're not processing any refund requests due to that reason. No decision has been made as far as a court challenge is concerned. The legal case is still in the Franklin County Court. So at this point, it's for informational purposes as far as what the potential liability may be to Brooklyn. And as they get more information, they will be sending that out to me, and I will be reporting back to City Council on that. And that's all. I don't know if there's any questions on that.
No,
May
thank
I-
you for the info. Yeah, Mrs. Pucci, go ahead.
So I believe the way it's worded on the form is that the request for the refund is going to be subject to the outcome of the litigation. Do they have any estimates on what our potential liability might be? I know that I think there were some preliminary estimates earlier, but I'm just wondering if they have a better handle on what that situation is.
Not at this point. I think that this information will be able to give them a better analysis. There's been no update from the analysis I've provided to City Council late last year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, can I be recognized?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, as
Yes.
much as we would be losing, I mean, it's going to be a plus and a minus. I mean, from the employees that work in here but live in other cities, but then it's going to be the reverse again for people working at home that were working in Independence or whatever else. So it's just going to be a big puzzle.
It will be. The analysis that they provided late last year was a net effect, so it took all that into account.
Okay.
But that's a fair point, and when I touch back with them, how the analysis from these tax returns, I will make sure to ask them about that too, to make sure that it's the net, not the gross.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Raguse. Mayor, did you have anything you add for finance?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and call the committee of the whole to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Sue Grodick,
Here.
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Mary Belbeer,
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Here.
First item on the agenda is, or excuse me, are the minutes from our previous meeting on January 11th, 2021. Are there any comments or questions regarding those minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Okay, the first item we'll take up is ordinance 2020-58. And Mr. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Oh, no, that's the regular council meeting that I missed. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong meeting for the minute that I missed.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so the first item we'll take up is ordinance 2020-58, and we'll bring Mr. Butler back in. He said that he was having a discussion with Mr. Udis about this and had some changes he wanted to bring up. Mr. Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you look at that ordinance, the draft before you, in section 761.03A, Mr. Udris raised the point that some food trucks are brought in for private events where food is not exchanged for sale. And so his suggestion was to make sure that we account for those types of food trucks as well. For example, those that would be parked in a driveway for a special party or something like that, by eliminating the words "for sale" after the word "offer" in the first line there. So it would read, "No person shall offer any food from any food truck within the city without a current and valid mobile food service license or mobile food establishment license." That just eliminates the prospect that someone would be able to try to get away from having to obtain a license under those circumstances where they're not actually selling food from the vehicle itself. So that's one suggested change, which I'm happy to discuss separately, or I'll just move to the next one.
Yeah, go to the next one and we'll just take them all up at once.
Very good, thank you. All the way down in 761.06, products for sale. Mr. Udris indicated that a profit center for some food truck operators are branded items. So hats and the like, t-shirts and whatnot. And so his suggestion was that rather than just limit the sale of or the items offered, rather than limit that to food only, expand that to those types of branded items. So I have suggested the language just to account for that suggested change as the following. Food trucks shall only offer for sale food, which by the way includes food and beverages. And then with this addition, and comma, if food is sold, comma, the operator's branded items, operators being followed by an apostrophe. So the sentence would read, food trucks shall only offer for sale food and comma, if food is sold, comma, the operator's branded items. That keeps a food truck from serving as a temporary store because it always ensures that food is going to be sold from the food truck. But it also permits, t-shirts and the like to be sold alongside that food. Those are the two suggestions from Mr. Udris, and of course, happy to discuss any other changes that council or the committee would prefer to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. I don't have a problem with either one of those changes. Anyone else on the committee?
Hey, Ron, could I be recognized?
Yes.
With the first one, when you mentioned going back for sale, even if it was an individual party, wouldn't that be a catering sale? I mean, we're playing words.
Yeah, Mr. Sellerts, I certainly would think that we would have a shot at being successful arguing that someone needs to obtain a license, even if they're just at a catering gig. But there's no prohibition against contracting with an owner or an event operator without the license. There's only a prohibition from offering food for sale from the food truck. So my thought is we should probably button up that possible defense
Okay.
by changing that language. You're right that it may be a little far-fetched, but it's the art of good drafting is to try to eliminate those kinds of loopholes early.
Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend council adopt as amended.
Second.
To recommend council adopt the ordinance as amended, as Director Butler had stated. Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-3. This is to amend the rules of council. We discussed this at the last meeting. We are simply changing under Rule 5 public meetings in regards to electronic devices. It will now read, when council is in session, cell phones and other electronic devices shall be put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption. Okay, any other comments on that? All right, that's on second reading. Lastly, under old business is ordinance 2021-4. This is adopting the updated City of Brooklyn 2020 master plan and providing for the review thereof and providing for the integration of development of the city. That's spelled out in there. We did talk about this a little bit last meeting. Are there any other additional comments or questions regarding this? Okay. All right, that concludes our agenda for tonight. Mayor, do you have anything? Oh, there's one more thing I failed to mention in the finance meeting, and that is a NOPEC grant of $1,500 was awarded for the Recreation Center from NOPEC. So we are grateful for that grant. All right, Mayor, anything else need to add tonight for the Committee of the Whole?
My only update is we went through the interviews for the construction manager at risk. Based upon the scoring, Panzica came out #1. Mr. Butler should have received that contract. He will be in the process of going through the legals, and then it will be presented to City Council at the next meeting. That's it.
All right, very good. All right, anyone else on council have anything? Okay, I'll make a motion then that we adjourn.
Okay.
To adjourn, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Okay, we'll reconvene in about 25 minutes at 7 o'clock.
Okay, so please mute your microphones, please. I'm just letting everybody know that I'm going to resume the recording.
Thank you. We all set, Mary Jo?
Yes, already.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and call this city council meeting to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Sue Grodick,
Here.
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Mary Belbeer,
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Here. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Following the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll turn it over to Councilman Ryan Shaki for the opening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is Ryan Shaki.
I would just like to do a moment of silence today. That's okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of some minutes. The first one is our minutes from a special meeting we had on September 3rd, 2020. We inadvertently bypassed those from last year. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding those before we move to adopt?
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes from September 3rd, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next are the minutes that we had from our last meeting, January 11th, 2021. Are there any comments or questions regarding these?
Move to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes of January 11th, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
All right, at this time, we'll have the public session. If the public has anything, they are to email Mary Jo. I do have one submission, but Mary Jo, do we have anything else?
I did not receive anything else. I just checked.
Okay. All right, very good. I will read the one submission that I believe was sent to all of council. Then we'll move on with our agenda. City Council President, in light that the council meetings are being held by Zoom at this time and there is no public session, I request that this letter be read into record and the following issues be addressed. On 12/23/2020, a plan was approved by the city to move forward with work to be done at the service garage. The work outlines construction of an office for Service Director Verba. The city engineer was tasked with compiling drawings for the office. I submitted a records request for all documents involving this plan. Mr. Butler provided a copy of the certificate of approval and the drawings. After reviewing the drawings, it appears that this is a very involved project that is pulling 2 city employees away from their normal daily tasks, which include serving the public needs. In my opinion, the service department has shrunken manpower to a level that is unfair to the workers and the extra demands that are put on them. The conditions of the service garage are horrible. The work that is shown in the drawings will exceed $50,000 for something the city has never had. The city has recently released info about a new city hall being built along with a new police station. If the city is spending more than $50,000 on this office at the service garage, Will the city forego having an office at City Hall for the service director? The plans the city has released do not show a women's bathroom. It is a public building. Is it not required to provide bathrooms for all? Will the public bathroom be handicap accessible? The drawings seem to show that the new office will have a private bathroom and a separate heating and cooling system. Why can't the service director use the same restrooms the other city employees use? How much would that save the city by canceling the private bathroom? Anyone who has ever walked through the service garage knows it is in a bad shape. How about making some repairs instead of making the service director his own little clubhouse? I do not understand the need for this office. Why not build him a satellite office in one of the many houses the city has purchased over the last few years? This seems to be a huge waste of city funds. The finance director has stated in emails to me that the city does not know the lasting effects of the COVID-19 issues and financial losses to the city that will continue. Why are we acting like we have endless funds? Spending these funds on an office for administrator displays that the mayor's office cares more about her director than she does the workers who actually serve the public and get the work done. This is saying the wrong message to the workers. Morale is circling the drain. Let's stop acting like this is a game of Monopoly. Please explain why this is needed. Our service garage workers do an outstanding job and are up for a new contract. If you are so, quote, hell-bent on spending money like this, then hire more workers. Respectfully submitted, Robert Slattery, 6600 Bucyrus Drive. As requested, I will address the questions and comments in this letter during my report. We'll now move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin this evening with the Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. The Silver Sneakers program has been down since the COVID-19 pandemic began early last year. Started good on a good path until May, and the numbers went down. Here are the monthly reports for the year of 2020. In January, we made $3,489. February, we made $3,651. March, we made $4,130.50. April, $4,326.50. May, $1,810. This is where it starts to drop a little bit. In June, $250. In July, $1,131. August, $1,347.50. September, $1,416. October, $1,623. November, $1,308, and December, $1,161. So total for 2020, $25,643. And that concludes my rec report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. The Finance Committee met at 6:15 this evening, and we discussed the following. Ordinance 2021-5. This establishes the Civil Center Capital Improvement Fund. This fund is being established for the purpose of effectively accounting for the resources that will be spent on this project. There was a similar fund that was established when we constructed the fire station. And so again, we're establishing this fund again to create accountability and effective accounting practices for this fund. Council, or for this project, council did unanimously recommend adoption, or the Finance Committee recommended adoption. Secondly was Ordinance 2021-6, enacting uncodified regulations with respect to employee pay and fringe benefits in order to respond to the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. This is an ordinance that was originally passed early last year and has expired. We are now repassing it to give the mayor more flexibility when it comes to employee pay and fringe benefits, and it will go through July 31st of this year or until 14 days after the governor lifts the state of emergency for the pandemic. And of course, we can't extend it if we feel the need to, if July 31st is not long enough. And lastly, we briefly discussed Ordinance 2020-58 in regards to the food truck ordinance and the amount that will be charged for that. There's been some discussion about lowering that, but it looks like we're going to keep that at $50. The Finance Committee does meet each regularly scheduled council meeting at 6:15. Right now it's online. It typically will take place at City Hall. We'll now move on with the next report, the Domestic Abuse Commission. Councilwoman Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. Last week, the Domestic Abuse Commission held our first book discussion of the book It Ends With Us with the Euclid Domestic Violence Task Force. I want to thank all of those who joined us, including Molly and Victoria from the Journey Center for Safety and Healing, who added to the conversation as professionals who work in the field. We hope to have similar events later this year, the first hopefully spring or early summer, to work towards involving the community on this sensitive but important topic. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is legislative update. Councilwoman Balbier.
Thank you. We've probably all seen people going around, on electric scooters. I've seen them especially downtown and in the near West Side neighborhoods and wondered legally, what is their situation? Are they technically treated like a bicycle, a motorbike, automobile? What? Earlier this month, Governor DeWine signed a bill setting up regulations for electric scooters. House Bill 295 is basically a compromise reached between scooter rental companies and local governments. Under the new law, scooters can be used on bicycle paths and lanes. The local governments and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources have the power to regulate their use. The law sets a statewide speed limit of 20 miles per hour, and riders must yield to pedestrians and use a front light and rear reflector when riding at night. Scooters cannot be rented by or for people younger than 16 years old. Violators can be cited and fined up to $150. The law also requires scooter rental services to maintain liability insurance up to $1 million per occurrence and $2 million in total. The governor also signed House Bill 352, which was a culmination of a 2-decade effort by employers and defense attorneys to overhaul the state's workplace discrimination laws. Under the new law, employment discrimination lawsuits must be brought within 2 years, rather than the 6 years under the previous state laws. The 6-year statute of limitation was the longest of any state in the nation. The law further requires people to file a grievance with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission before they can file a workplace discrimination lawsuit, and it excludes managers, supervisors, and employees from personal liability for employment discrimination unless they are personally accused of retaliating or obstructing a person from complying with the civil rights law. House Bill 352 also allows employers to avoid liability in sexual harassment lawsuits if they cannot show they took reasonable steps to correct sexually harassing behavior, or if the employee unreasonably failed to take advantage of any preventive or corrective opportunities provided by the law. Both House Bill 295 regarding the electric scooters and House Bill 352 regarding workplace discrimination will take in effect on April 13th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Balbier. Next up is the Board of Zoning Appeals, Commissioner Colstar.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. On Thursday, January 21st, the Board of Zoning Appeals met. I first heard 3 variance requests from Brilliant Electric Sign. The first being for 1 foot, 8-inch variance to the maximum height of 16 feet for a freestanding sign. It's for Skyworks Equipment Rental at 8650 Brook Park Road. The second variance for that same sign was an 8 square foot variance to the maximum freestanding sign area of 40 square feet. And the last was for an 8 foot, 8-inch variance to the maximum distance from the right of way for that freestanding sign. The next request was from James Columbro. This was for a 1 foot height variance to the maximum allowable height of 3 feet for a living fence in front or side yard at 7415 Del Bank Drive. This variance was denied. I don't believe I stated the first 3 variances for Brilliant Electric were approved. And the last request, which was from Robert Donegan Jr., attorney for Hvac Realty LLC, is for a variance to the paving requirement for a parking area at 7332 Associate Avenue. And this request was deferred by the applicant prior to the meeting. The zoning board meets once a month, and that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colsart. Next is our school board liaison. Back to the Councilwoman Belbier.
Thank you. A very short school board report. Dr. Claris mentioned that the school will be continuing on the hybrid schedule through February 22nd. At this point, school will make a decision as to which students may come back for 5 days a week. Dr. Claris also believes that our school employees will have access to the COVID-19 vaccine at some point in early February and February and early March. The next school board meeting is February 2nd, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Belbier. The committee of the whole met immediately following the Finance Committee meeting this evening and discussed the following. Ordinance 2020-58, creating Chapter 761 food trucks of the codified ordinance of the City of Brooklyn. 2 recommendations or changes to the ordinance were made. The first of which is under 761.03A. It currently reads, no person shall offer for sale any food from any food truck within the city within a current and valid mobile food service license or mobile food establishment license. This is changed to take out no person shall offer for sale any food. It will take out the words for sale because there is a possibility that people would rent a food truck and would not be selling food. So we wanted to make sure that was addressed. So it was recommended that we eliminate that. Then also under 761.06 under products for sale, it reads currently food truck shall only offer for sale food. And the new wording will be food trucks shall only offer for sale food. And if food is sold, the operators branded items. It came to the attention of Mr. Butler that there are food trucks that also offer their merchandise, hats, t-shirts, things like that for sale that are branded for them. And we wanted to be able to make sure they were able to sell that as long as they are selling food from that food truck as well. And council did, the committee did recommend that council adopt as amended. The next item was Ordinance 2021-3. This is amending the rules of council for 2021. There was just one change that was recommended in our organizational meeting, and that was in regards to electronic devices. The new rule will state when council is in session, cell phones and other electronic devices shall be put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption. And then lastly was Ordinance 2021-4. This is adopting the City of Brooklyn 2020 Master Plan for the periodic review thereof, and also providing for the integration of the physical development of it. And we discussed this at length at our previous committee meeting. No further discussion was had on this, and that is on second reading. Again, the committee of the whole meetings are open to the public and take place following the Finance Committee meeting prior to the start of all council meetings. We'll now move on with reports of council. We'll begin this evening with Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you. Looking for that mute button. First, I would like to thank Mr. Slattery for submitting his letter. I think all of us will say that one of the hardest parts, and there's a lot of hard parts about meeting remotely, but probably the hardest part is feeling so out of contact with residents and it being so difficult for them to communicate with City Council. And I appreciate Mr. Van Kirk reading the letter and also giving Mr. Slattery some of the answers he's looking for during his report. Thank you for that. Last Monday was an important turning point in Ohio in our battle against the COVID-19. I hope everyone is aware that vaccines began to be available for seniors in the general population. I know I personally felt a huge sense of relief when my own father got his first shot through the VA last week. Just in case you aren't aware, any Ohioan that is at least 75 years old is now eligible for the vaccine. More seniors and people with underlying conditions are going to be added over the next several weeks. As Councilwoman Balbier mentioned, school employees will be, should be eligible in February, fingers crossed. And that certainly will help us get back to school full-time, 5 days a week. The vaccine is free. Everyone should realize that, because I'm sure we will start to see scams come across like we always do. But you must find your own provider. A simple way, just beginning today, is through the Cuyahoga County Board of Health hotline. If you dial 211 on weekdays in between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., they will help you find a provider close to you. And another way is to go online. A real easy way would be through the Ohio Department of Health. You can simply go online to vaccine.coronavirus.ohio.gov. But really, any combination of that is going to get you to that website where you can put our zip code in and find providers near us. You have to make a schedule. We're not doing at this time drive up. So please, if you are eligible for it, please look into it, give it careful consideration. And I look forward to beginning to put this behind us. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Groick. Next up, Mrs. Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. I want to welcome Megan Beach, who is a CSU student studying economic development, who will be interning with me this semester. While we're having another remote semester, I already have some projects lined up for Megan, and we'll be meeting this way through Zoom all semester, but I look forward to it. Also, the CDC extended the eviction moratorium until March 31st. Tenants must submit a declaration form to their landlord and meet specific criteria. For more information, you can visit the Legal Aid Society website at lasclev.org. A pop-up with more information about emergency assistance and the moratorium comes up on their homepage. If you or someone you know is facing eviction, please share this valuable information with them and direct them to the Legal Aid Society website. Again, lasclev.org. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Selhertz.
Thank you. Just kind of following up from the last meeting, we're still continuing to work on trying to clean up the utility poles. Thank you goes out to Cindy Flanagan from Kevin Kelly's office. She got the Cleveland Division of Traffic Control to take care of something over at Ridge in Memphis. With the real term energy, with the GIS audit, I wish I could say that that thing was done. Those inconsistencies are in the hands of First Energy. I know Mr. Raguse has been part of these meetings as well. At the next committee as a whole meeting on February 8th, we'll have Kerry Wilson from Real Term give a presentation of this whole process. Knock on wood, maybe it's going to be done. I wish it was. Excuse me. With Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, we will be scheduling a list of cleanups. They're going to start in April and it'll go through October. With Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, we're also teaming up with another group. We're going to be having cleanups there with this group. They're going to start in March. We'll give you more details at the following council meetings. Brooklyn Music Boosters is having another fundraiser at Canes on Monday, February 8th from 4 to 10 p.m. Please mention the fundraiser at the register, and Canes will donate 15% of sales to the boosters. The music department this past week did their holiday concerts, a little past the holidays, but they did it with limited seating, but they also provided the program broadcast on YouTube, which was nice to see. And speaking of concerts, the Chamber of Commerce in these strange times is still going to try to do the Taste of Brooklyn. It's going to be a virtual event. So try to keep the date of May 1st open, and details will be coming down the road to you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. The Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation has scheduled their annual meeting for Monday, February 1st at 5:30. And this meeting will be conducted via Zoom. And the agenda is as follows. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which took place on August 17th, 2020. Election of trustees, election of officers for 2021, approval of the 2020 financial statements, and approval of the purchase agreement for 8519 Memphis Avenue. And this is the former training center for Speedway that is on the corner of Memphis and Rodone. Other business and then adjournment. And I'm on the same page as Mrs. Grodick and Mrs. Ryan Shockey. I also had down on my notes for a mention of the vaccine and the fact that residents can call 211. And I'm very glad that the county partnered with United Way of Greater Cleveland, because I know it was very challenging and difficult for senior citizens. The only option they had up until this point was to register online. And then for that, you needed an email address. So this should simplify things, especially for our seniors. And then also I have the note about the eviction moratorium being extended. And in addition to this, there's also some mortgage assistance available through the Cuyahoga County Mortgage Assistance Program. To apply for the program, the phone number is 216-600-2814. And to be eligible for the mortgage assistance, the borrower must meet the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development income guidelines and have missed one or more mortgage payments due to COVID-19. And the house must be the borrower's primary resident, among other criteria. And I believe Brooklyn is one of the municipalities that qualify. So I'll pass this information along to Mary Jo, and maybe we could get this posted on our website and also on social media. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belbier.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to add a little bit about the vaccine, since it's the hottest topic going, and with the rollout of it last week. I have a couple do's and don'ts before and after COVID vaccine shots. Do get your vaccine when it's your turn. Don't let disinformation on vaccines cloud your judgment. Social media is rife with all kinds of disinformation about the COVID-19 and the vaccine that are available to prevent it. If you have any doubts about the vaccine, you need to get educated, research it. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention is a trusted source. Do get vaccinated if you've already had COVID-19. Reinfection with COVID-19 is definitely possible according to the CDC. First of all, check with your doctor. Don't get a shot if you currently have COVID-19 or have been exposed. You should wait till your symptoms are less and your isolation period has passed, because you don't want to pass it on to somebody else. Do get the shot, even if you still have COVID symptoms months later. A growing number of people are becoming coronavirus long haulers. Those are people who continue to suffer fatigue, brain fog, aches, pains, headaches, and more for months after the virus has left their system. Doctors think the long haul symptoms are not due to the virus infection, but due to prolonged inflammatory responses to the virus. Don't get another type of vaccine within 14 days of the COVID-19 shot, such as the flu vaccine or the shingle one. Wait at least 14 days before or after getting another vaccine. This is all according to the CDC. Do tell vaccine staff about any allergies or past allergic reactions that you've had. It's rare, but few people have had moderate to severe allergic reactions after being given the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine. So it's important to tell your provider about these past allergic reactions. After you get your shot, Don't drive away right away. They like you to wait 15 to 30 minutes, just to see what your reaction was or if there's any problem. The CDC requires that everyone receiving the coronavirus vaccination, yes, wait for the 15 minutes, whether you wait in the car, in the doctor's office, or the pharmacy. Yes, don't get your second shot or vaccine within the recommended time frame. Getting a second shot of the vaccine is needed to be sure that you have protection. And Pfizer vaccine should be given 21 days apart. The CDC recommends while the second dose of Moderna is administered 28 days after the first. Do not get your second dose early, but if you have trouble scheduling, wait a few days after the due date. And lastly, continue to wear a mask and practice social distancing after your shots. The CDC highly recommends this. The first dose will not produce enough of an immune response to protect you or others. The second dose should provide approximately 95% protection within 1 to 2 weeks after the administration, depending on the vaccine. I do know I talked to Karen Frado at our senior center, and she is willing, if anybody wants to give her a call to help set up an appointment for their vaccine. She can be reached at 635-4222. And Kathy, her assistant, is also quite well versed in all this, and they would be more than happy to help anyone set up appointments or give them any kind of advice. And that completes my report, and hopefully it'll work. Thank you.
Mr. Tansky.
Sorry about that. Good evening again. Just one question to the mayor, if she can give us any update on the road that runs underneath 480 all the way up until, I believe it's going to go to Brook Park, on where we're sitting on any kind of completion date, where it started, if there's been any meetings. Getting some more complaints about the road underneath there being more uneven. I know a lot of the sewer manholes are uneven. So if you can update us, I'd appreciate that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. I'm just going to address some of the questions and comments that were made in Mr. Slattery's letter. And this information comes from having this discussion both at from our public work sessions, as well as with the mayor and service director Verba. So first, to provide some background information on this project, the idea of moving the service director's office to the service garage actually began during the previous administration. The mayor at the time thought it was wise to make this move, as most service directors do have their office at their city service garage. And the current administration obviously agrees. The project was placed on the capital projects list and has been on the list for the past few years. And it was recently approved for the construction by City Council for 2021. This new office will allow direct contact from the service director with the service garage employees that he supervises. The service director met with GPD, which is our city engineer, at the service garage to discuss the best location for the new office. Originally, the city was looking at building an addition onto the current service garage. However, GPD advised that this addition would not fit within the $50,000 authorized budget. The engineer suggested that the best location that would involve the least amount of time, work, and money will be to transform the old woman's locker room that is currently only being used as a storage area. The architect then designed the plans for a 15 by 10 foot office. As a note, the service director's current office size is 24.5 by 15 feet. Now I'll address each of the questions and some of the comments that were made in the letter. Number one, if the city is spending more than $50,000 on this office at the service garage, will the city forego having an office at City Hall for the service director? And the answer to that, in short, is yes. The service director's office will be at the service garage and will not be in the new City Hall. Number two, regarding using 2 city employees to accomplish the work. 2 carpenters will be used for this project. During the winter months, the city frequently uses the carpenters to work on repairs and additions to city buildings before the weather breaks in the spring. In previous years, they have completed numerous projects in the police station, the animal shelter, and in City Hall. Some of these projects included transforming the old fire chief's office and the old fire station into the city's current sign shop, installing shelving and storage room add-ons, equipment room renovations, work on the armory at the police station, painting jail cells, and then most recently, turning the old fire station basement into a fitness room for the police department. This last project took an extensive amount of time, but saved the city thousands of dollars by doing this work in-house. Again, all these projects were done during the winter season, as will this one. Number 3, it is a public building. Is it not required to provide bathrooms for all? Will the public bathroom be handicap accessible? The restaurant inside the service garage is accessible to anyone. It is a family restroom. The restroom that will be attached to the new office will be fully ADA compliant and will be accessible to anyone needing that accessibility. Number 4, why can't the service director use the same restroom the other city employees use? This restroom is already in the building and must remain in the building per Ohio Building Code because it is fully ADA compliant. Per our building commissioner, Mr. Kolsar, quote, the plans are reviewed and approved per the Ohio Building Code. The existing accessible restroom could not be eliminated and must remain available to anyone that may need to use it. All single occupant restrooms are available to anyone, regardless of gender. Number 5, how much would that save the city by canceling the private bathroom? It would actually cost the city much more to eliminate this bathroom, as it will be the only restroom that is fully ADA compliant in the building. As mentioned previously, anyone with ADA needs will have access to this facility. Had this restroom been eliminated, the city would have had to pay to upgrade the current restroom to make it fully ADA compliant. Number 6, why not build him a satellite office in one of the many houses the city has purchased over the last few years? There are numerous reasons why this would not work, but the main one is that it would defeat the whole purpose of the new office. The purpose of this office is to have a service director in the same building as the rest of the service department. Number 7, why are we acting like we have endless funds? This is a matter of opinion. The city has not and will not act like we have endless funds. Although there will always be those who disagree with how funds are used, City Council and this administration takes very seriously the expenditure of taxpayer dollars. Brooklyn is in a good financial position. Even with the loss of AG and the loss of revenue from COVID, the city is still moving forward with the building of a new police station in City Hall that all residents can be proud of. We are all well aware that difficult months are still to come, but the city has prepared itself to weather these turbulent times. In regards to this particular project, it was discussed during one of our public work sessions. These sessions took place on October 19th and November 2nd at the Senior Center and were available for anyone to attend. Number 8, it was mentioned this office would be a, quote, clubhouse. As was mentioned earlier, the proposed office will be roughly half the size of the service director's current office. Number 9, regarding a separate HVAC system. The proposal for a separate HVAC system was proposed by the HVAC contractor Smith & Obey. They stated, quote, the architect and engineer laid out the space to accommodate the new use. The new layout allows for the occupants of the common space to have control of the comfort in the common space and the office to be zoned separate. This is not uncommon given the different work practices of the different occupants. Said another way, consideration has been given so that the service associates can adjust the indoor conditions to best align with what they need based on their different work activities in the outside environment. Those conditions are not the same as the comfort conditions requested for standard office space. The new use of this space has different HVAC requirements than the prior locker room use of this space. And lastly, how about making some repairs to the service garage? Repairs have been made to the service garage the past few years and will be continued to be made part of the capital budget. In 2020, $50,000 was spent to concrete the parking lot, and another $50,000 is budgeted to be spent on improvements over the next 3 years. In recent years, the mechanic's office was extended by our 2 carpenters, making the office bigger. A new floor was put in the dispatch office just a few weeks ago. Electrical upgrades were made last year that amounted to nearly $16,000. Additionally, the service garage lighting was completely upgraded in 2015. Due to the recreation center roof needing to be done this year, the service garage roof is scheduled to be replaced in 2022 at an estimated cost of $700,000. There will need to be minor repairs made on the current roof that will be done as needed. Finally, by having our employees do most but not all of the work, the city has saved and will continue to save a considerable amount of money. So I too want to thank Mr. Slattery for his letter and his questions, and hopefully those questions were answered and those comments were answered with that report. That is all I have for tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. If anybody could wave to me if my internet goes out. Some of you guys have been spotty, so I think it's on my end. I'll start off by answering Mr. Tansky's question. The Ridge Road construction from Flowerdale until Pearl Road, that's a joint venture between Cleveland, Parma, Brooklyn, and with Hvac in the lead and the county also involved, is scheduled for 2022, so next year. That originally was not on their tip list, but they did move that up because that area is so bad. So 2022 is when you will see all the changes. There have been going back and forth. They were initially just going to do an overlay in that area. Our engineer, Dan Gerson, talked the engineers into doing a complete reconstruction of that area because he feels like with the high activity in that particular area, as well as the lasting effects of an overlay versus a full concrete job, will allow for this area to not go into construction for a long time by doing it what he would say the right way the first time. So I am thankful that we do have an excellent engineer looking at those pre-construction plans, and that Hvac was good about converting what was just supposed to be an overlay to this deep construction, which I think, as all of you would know, construction in that area is going to be difficult for residents in all of these particular areas to get through because that intersection is traveled so frequently. I want to thank City Council for understanding and giving that room by extending the needs for COVID. Hopefully you all talked about the vaccination, and at the end of this year, we won't need these kind of requirements, but we still continue to have people who have family members that get COVID, or they themselves get COVID, or the situation with children are up in the air, whether even if their child is back in school, maybe they were exposed and they need to quarantine. So we've just been about a game of shifting, and I'm sure you've all done that with your own jobs and see with your coworkers. So appreciate that and understanding the needs here and taking care of our employees. 2 annual reports have come in so far, and I expect the rest of them in the next week or so. But I just want to give some highlights. Out of our fire department, despite COVID, you've seen with the annual report for the senior center, a lot of the numbers have gone down. But our fire department was continuous, like nothing ever happened as COVID probably increased a little bit. They had 892 fire alarms. 17 of those were actual structure fires. They had 1,974 EMS calls, which is just a tiny increase from the year before, of which 1,328 were transported to the hospital. So what we've seen, if you look historically, is the EMS calls have gone up, but the amount of people getting transported to the hospital seems to remain static. So it's something that we're looking into to see why maybe our calls are going up versus the number going to the hospital seems to remain the same. The fire loss was 158,500 for this past year, which was not that bad in comparison of previous years. As far as our building department, some kind of interesting data to pass on to you. Our construction value for last year came in at $22.8 million. About half of that was the permits pulled for the Avenue, the nursing home project over by Brooklyn Point. We saw a 17% increase in residential projects. I think with people home, they got bored of looking at things in their house and they decided to do some improvements. So that was about $3 million of our construction. Some other good indicators that I believe out of this report, we saw vacant property registrations once again go down. There was only 9 of those for 2020 compared to the previous year of 16. And then as well as foreclosure filings went down dramatically. There were 6 of those last year, with the previous year being 17. So all these reports will be sent out to council once I receive them all, and they will be put on the city's website. And I did follow up briefly. Our John Verba did an excellent job of replying to Mr. Slattery's requests. Mr. Van Kirk asked me if I had anything to add on. I really didn't because John was so thorough. But if you have any specific questions for me, I would be happy to answer those questions. I know we talked about this in length in our budget capital sessions. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now move on with director's reports. We have just one for this evening, and that's our Finance Director, Mr. Raguse.
Good evening, City Council. I just want to provide a brief overview of the year-end 2020 general fund financial statements that were included with the packet for tonight's meeting. So on the revenue side, overall revenues finished the year at 104% of the estimated amount, and also 2% more than the projected estimate that we went over during the budget work session on November 2nd. This was mainly as a result of additional income tax collected in the fourth quarter of 2020. Overall revenues, 8% less than prior year, consistent with the last several months, largely due to losses as a result of COVID-19, as well as one-time revenue we received in 2019. On the bottom half of the income statement with the commitments, overall commitments finished the year at 109% of the initial budget amount. This is due to the transfer that to the Economic Development Fund in the amount of $2.9 million that we discussed and agreed upon at the budget work session on November 2nd, but was not as part of the initial budget that was passed for 2020. Excluding that transfer, overall commitments finished the year at 90% of the original budget amount, as well as 3% less than prior year. Much of that as a result of the coronavirus relief funding that we received in the amount of $778,000 that we shifted public personnel expenses from the general fund to the coronavirus relief fund in accordance with the ordinance that was passed by City Council in 2020. So the key takeaways for the year for the general fund is that we were able to transfer $2.9 million to the Economic Development Fund based upon fiscal year 2020 surplus. This is $640,000 more than we projected as part of the November 2nd budget work session for the reasons that we discussed previously. So with all that, the year-end general fund balance remained consistent at $16.4 million, pretty much the same as what the year started with. With updating the financial statements for December, I also updated the financial forecast, and I provided a brief overview of the update as it results to the general fund. So the initial 10-year projection that we went through at the November 2nd budget work session had the general fund balance at $4.1 million. The update has the general fund balance at $5.4 million, so an increase of $1.3 million, mainly as a result of the additional premium compensation that we received from Ohio Borough Workers' Compensation. We received this in December of last year at an amount of $810,000. We discussed this at the November 2nd budget work session, but it was not included in the financial forecast update since we found of it late in the process. So this is something that we did discuss, but was not part of the initial projection. Also, another reason is, again, the increase in the transfer to the Economic Development Fund, the $2.9 million. So that's a brief overview of the general fund. I also included an update to the estimated losses as it relates to the COVID-19 revenue losses. We finished the year at an estimated loss of overall revenues of $1.8 million, of which $1.6 million belong to the general fund. Taking into account all the assistance that we received as it relates to COVID-19, the net loss citywide was approximately $825,000. Of that, the general fund losses were approximately net loss of $636,000. And we've also received our January distributions from RETA. So a brief update on that is that total distributions were $383,000 more than last year, than January of 2020. $383,000 more, 26% more. This is mainly as a result of a net profit, one-time net profit payment they received in the amount of $679,000. I'm working with Rita as far as trying to ascertain what the reason for that net profit distribution was. Excluding that, withholding, which is obviously the key indicator of the health of our economic base and income tax revenue is concerned, withholdings accounted for a decrease of $178,000 or 14% from January 2020. So kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, I'm still doing research as far as how much of those losses were a result of COVID-19, and I'll provide the update with the January 2021 financial report. It still is weird for me to say 2021. So of course, I'll be providing an update on that as it comes. So any questions from City Council at this time? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Appreciate that. We'll now move on to our legislation. The first item we have this evening is a notification. We received a $1,500 NOPEC grant for the Recreation Center. And so we appreciate that from NOPEC. And these funds will be used to offset the drive-in movies that will take place hopefully this summer. The first item of legislation is Ordinance 2020-58, creating Chapter 761 food trucks of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Brooklyn. We will need to amend this, and so I will read these amendments as I did in my report. The first one is under Section 761.03, Section A. The new Section A shall read, "No person shall offer any food from any food truck within the city without a current and valid mobile food service license or mobile food establishment license." The second amendment is under 761.06, products for sale, and it shall read, "Food trucks shall only offer food for sale, and if food is sold, the operator's branded items." So those are the two changes. Does anyone else have any additional comments or questions? Right. I'll make recommendation that council amend as stated.
Second.
To amend, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci. Oh, Kathy, you're muted. Sorry. Kathy?
She's frozen on the YouTube.
She is frozen. I'll come back to her. Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Let me call her real quick and I'll put her on speakerphone on my side.
Okay.
And Mary Jo, you might want to look for her to be in the waiting room again.
That's what I'm trying to log back in.
All right. I have you on speakerphone here, and we were just taking the vote to amend, and you can, Mary Jo can hear you. So Mary Jo?
Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, as amended, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next two ordinances are on second reading. Ordinance 2021-3, amending various rules of council codified pursuant to section 121.01 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Brooklyn. Ordinance 2021-4, adopting the updated City of Brooklyn 2020 Master Plan, providing for the periodic review thereof, and providing for the integration of the physical development of the city therewith. Under new business this evening, the first item is Ordinance 2021-5. And this is on first reading, but we do hope to pass by suspension of the rules, establishing the Civic Center Capital Improvement Fund. Are there any other comments or questions?
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes,
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes,
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Next is ordinance 2021-6 is up for first reading, but we do hope to pass by suspension of the rules. Enacting uncodified regulations with respect to employee pay and fringe benefits in order to respond to the 2020 COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic and declaring an emergency. Any comments or questions on this? Introduced by all, suspend the rules?
second,
Second.
To suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes,
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes,
Kathy Pucci,
yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you, council. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Do any council members, the mayor, any other directors have anything they need to add? Okay, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a blessed evening.
Thanks.
Have a good evening, everyone.